I thought I was alone, until an alien vampire woman whispered my name. Elias Cade had learned the sound of silence in space. It was not true silence, of course. The station always breathed, soft hums from the reactor, faint clicks from cooling panels, the distant vibration of systems that refused to sleep. But there was another kind of silence, the kind that settled into a person's bones when they realized no one was listening anymore. Listening station Helios 9 drifted at the edge of a dead star system, so far from the main trade routes that even smugglers avoided it. The official record said it was decommissioned. The unofficial truth was simpler. No one cared enough to take it apart, except humans. Elias was human, and that was the reason he was there. He floated near the main observation window, boots hooked into the magnetic floor, arms crossed as he stared into the black. The dead star sat in the distance like a burned-out eye, its light long gone. Around it, broken planets and frozen debris formed a graveyard that no living species had reason to visit. No living species except his own. Humans had a habit of showing up where they were not wanted, or where they were forgotten. Elias had been a systems engineer back on Earth's outer colonies. Not important enough to matter, not special enough to miss. When the Coalition declared humanity non-essential to galactic stability, assignments like Helios 9 became human work by default. Dangerous. Isolated. Quiet, he checked the console beside the window. Long-range scanners showed nothing new. No ships, no signals, no movement. Good, he told himself. That was good. Still, the unease would not leave him. The galaxy believed this station was empty. Officially abandoned centuries ago after the Coalition decided the dead star system had no strategic value. Elias was here to maintain passive sensors, machines that watched, listened, and recorded things no one else bothered to track. At least, that was the mission brief. The truth was that humans were being slowly pushed to the edges of known space, not attacked, not hunted, just ignored, trade routes rerouted, alliances rewritten, colonies left out of defense agreements. Humans had survived worse. Elias pushed himself away from the window and drifted toward the central corridor. The lights flickered as he passed, old panels struggling to stay bright. The station was ancient, built by a species long gone, retrofitted by others, and finally handed down to humanity like unwanted furniture. He liked it anyway. The corridors were narrow but solid. The walls were marked with symbols from at least 3 different civilizations, layered over one another like history refusing to be erased. Elias often wondered how many people had walked these halls before him. How many had stared into the same darkness and felt the same quiet fear. He reached the mess area and heated a nutrient pack. It tasted like nothing, which was better than some of the alternatives. As he ate, he reviewed maintenance logs on his wrist display. Power levels stable. Shield integrity low but acceptable. Sensors operational. Then a warning flashed. He frowned. It vanished almost as soon as it appeared. Probably a glitch, he told himself. The station was full of them. Still, he finished his meal faster than usual and made his way to the sensor control room. The door slid open with a reluctant hiss. Inside, the room glowed faintly with holographic displays and old-fashioned screens. Elias settled into the central chair and began running diagnostics. Everything looked normal, too normal. He leaned forward, fingers moving across the controls. The long-range sensors had picked up something, just for a moment. A fluctuation. A ripple that should not exist in empty space. "Come on," he muttered. "Show me." The data refused to reappear. Elias sat back, exhaling slowly. He had been alone too long. The human brain liked to invent problems when deprived of company. He reminded himself of that as he forced his shoulders to relax. That was when the lights went out. Not a flicker, not a warning, just darkness. The hum of the station died, replaced by a heavy, pressing quiet that felt wrong. Elias' heart began to race as emergency lights failed to activate. "This is not funny," he said aloud, his voice sounding too loud in the dark. His wrist display still worked. Power was not completely gone. That made no sense. He stood slowly, every muscle tight. The control room felt suddenly larger, the shadows deeper. His training told him to stay calm, to follow procedure, but another instinct, older and more honest, told him he was no longer alone. Then he heard it, a sound that was not mechanical. Footsteps. They were soft, measured, deliberate, not human, not rushed. They echoed faintly against the metal floor, coming from the corridor outside the control room. Elias swallowed hard. "No one is supposed to be here," he said, not sure who he was speaking to. The footsteps stopped just outside the door. The temperature dropped. Elias felt it on his skin, a sudden chill that had nothing to do with failing systems. His breath fogged faintly in front of his face. Then a voice spoke. "Elias." The sound was barely louder than a whisper, yet it filled the room completely. The voice was smooth, calm, and carried a strange weight, as if it had traveled a very long distance to reach him. Elias froze. No one should know his name. He had not transmitted it. The station logs were encrypted. The coalition barely remembered humans existed, let alone individual ones. His mouth felt dry. "Who's there?" There was no immediate answer. Instead, the lights returned, dim emergency illumination casting long shadows across the room. And in the doorway stood a figure. She was tall, slender, and unmistakably alien. Her skin had a pale, almost silver tone that seemed to absorb the light rather than reflect it. Her eyes glowed faintly red, not bright or threatening, but deep, like embers buried under ash. She did not wear armor. Her clothing flowed around her like liquid shadow, shifting slightly as if alive. Elias' instincts screamed at him to run. His legs refused to move. She stepped inside the room, her movements graceful and controlled. He noticed then that she did not quite touch the floor. Her feet hovered a fraction above it. "You heard me," she said softly. "That is good." Elias forced himself to breathe. "You shouldn't be here." A faint smile touched her lips. It was not cruel. If anything, it looked curious. "And yet," she replied, "here I am." His mind raced. He recognized the signs now, the temperature drop, the psychic pressure, the way the station seemed to bow around her presence. A nocturne. Stories about them were whispered even among humans. Ancient beings, energy feeders, predators that did not hunt flesh but life itself, memories, emotions, identity. Vampires, the galaxy called them, though none of the tales agreed on details. Elias straightened his back. If this was the end, he would not beg. "What do you want?" he asked. Her eyes studied him slowly, thoroughly. "I wanted to see if the rumors were true." "Rumors about what?" "About humans." Elias let out a short, humorless laugh. "You came all this way for that?" "Yes." She moved closer. Elias felt pressure behind his eyes, a sensation like someone gently testing the edges of his thoughts. He clenched his jaw, focusing on a memory of home, rust-colored skies, loud human voices, laughter that refused to die. The pressure stopped. Her expression changed. Surprise flickered across her face. "Interesting," she murmured. Elias met her gaze, heart pounding. "What did you expect?" "Fear," she said honestly. "Submission, the usual fractures." "And you didn't get that?" "No." Silence stretched between them. Finally, she stepped back. "I am Saris," she said, "observer of the Nocturne Conclave." "Observer sounds nicer than hunter," Elias replied, her lips curved slightly. "Appearances matter," he swallowed. "If you're observing, does that mean others are coming?" "Yes." The word landed like a blow. Elias closed his eyes briefly, then opened them. "Then why warn me?" Saris tilted her head. "I did not come to warn you, I came to understand." "Understand what?" "How a species marked for erasure continues to stand." Elias felt a spark of anger, sharp and sudden. "We're not marked for erasure." "According to the galaxy," Saris said gently, "you already are." He clenched his fists. "Then the galaxy's wrong." For a long moment, Saris simply watched him. The station lights flickered, struggling to stay alive. Finally, she spoke again. "That is why I whispered your name." "Why?" "Because," she said quietly, "I wanted to see if a human would answer the dark." And Elias realized with a chill deeper than fear that this encounter was not the end of humanity's story. It was the beginning. Saris did not leave after speaking those words. She stood in the control room as if she had all the time in the universe, while Elias felt every second pressing down on him. The emergency lights flickered again, then stabilized, casting her shadow long across the floor. It moved strangely, stretching in ways that did not match her body. Elias slowly lowered himself back into the chair. His legs felt weak, but he refused to sit like a victim. He kept his eyes on her, even though every instinct told him not to stare at a predator. "You said others are coming," he said. "When?" Saris turned her gaze toward the observation window, though the metal wall blocked the view. "Soon," she replied. "Time is flexible for my kind, but for you it will feel very fast." "That's comforting," Elias muttered. She looked back at him. Humor, another human trait that persists under pressure. "Yeah, well," he said, "panic doesn't fix broken stations." Her eyes narrowed slightly. "This station is not broken. It is old. There is a difference." Elias almost smiled despite himself. Humans say the same thing about themselves. That earned him another look of curiosity. Saris moved closer to one of the consoles, her fingers hovering above the controls without touching them. The screen beneath her hand flickered, data streams scrolling faster than Elias had ever seen. "You should not be able to do that," he said. "I am not touching it," she replied. "I am listening." "To what?" "To the station," Sarah said simply. "It remembers." Elias watched the data shift and twist, old logs surfacing, signals from decades past replaying like ghosts. The station truly was listening to everything just as it always had. "So," Elias said carefully, "you came here to observe humans. Why now?" Saris withdrew her hand. The screen returned to normal. "Because the decision has already been made." His stomach tightened. "What decision?" "The quiet removal of your species from relevance," she said. "No open war, no martyrdom, just isolation until your colonies fail and your people scatter." "That's genocide," Elias said. "In your language," Saris agreed. "In the Coalition's language, it is resource optimization." Elias stood up again, anger pushing past fear. "And you're just okay with that?" Saris studied him. "I have consumed the final thoughts of worlds that burned. I have watched empires fall into dust. Your species is not unique in facing this." "But you still came," Elias said. "You still spoke to me." "Yes," she admitted. "Why?" Saris turned away, walking slowly toward the observation window. Elias followed at a distance, stopping a few steps behind her. The dead star system stretched beyond the glass, cold and empty. "I have fed on fear," Saris said quietly, "on despair, on surrender. Most species collapse inward when they realize they are alone." "And humans?" Elias asked. "They adapt," she replied. "Even now, abandoned by allies, pushed into forgotten systems, you continue to repair what others discard. You continue to listen when the galaxy goes silent." Elias crossed his arms. "That's not bravery, that's survival." Saris glanced back at him. "There is little difference." The station shuddered slightly, a low vibration running through the walls. Elias checked his wrist display. "Something just entered the system," he said. Saris nodded. "A probe, Coalition design." Elias' heart sank. "They found us." "They always knew this station existed," Saris corrected. "They simply did not care. Until now." He moved quickly to the console, pulling up sensor data. A small, sleek object drifted into view, barely visible against the darkness. It emitted a narrow scan beam that swept across the station. "Is it armed?" Elias asked. "No," Saris said. "It is here to confirm absence. If it reports life, more will follow." Elias' mind raced. "Then we can hide, shut down systems, kill heat output." "It will still detect you," Saris said. "Human biology is loud." He let out a breath. Then what do we do? Saris was silent for a long moment. Elias turned to face her. You said humans don't break. Well, this is us not breaking. Help me. Her eyes met his, searching. If I intervene directly, I violate the Conclave's law of non-disruption. And if you don't, Elias said, an entire species gets erased. Saris closed her eyes. When she opened them, the red glow had deepened. There are other ways, she said. She extended her hand toward Elias. He hesitated only a second before taking it. Her skin was cool but not unpleasant. A pulse of energy ran through him, sharp but controlled. Do not resist, Saris said. I am not feeding. The world shifted. Elias gasped as his perception expanded. He could feel the station, not just hear it, but sense it as a whole. Power flows, structural stress, ancient circuits still humming with forgotten purpose. You're linking me, he said. I am sharing perspective, Saris replied. You see systems. I see patterns. Together we improvise. The probe's scan intensified. Elias focused, pulling up manual overrides he had never used, rerouting energy through redundant pathways, masking human signatures behind layers of artificial noise. Human technology is crude, Saris said, but flexible. That's one word for it, Elias replied through clenched teeth. The probe paused, seconds stretched. Elias felt sweat bead on his forehead. He pushed harder, forcing the station to mimic an empty shell, a dead relic drifting without purpose. The probe adjusted its angle, scanning again. Then slowly it drifted away. Elias sagged against the console, breathing hard. The link faded, leaving him dizzy but intact. Saris withdrew her hand. It will report nothing, she said. For now, Elias replied, but they'll keep checking. Yes, Saris agreed, which is why this station can no longer remain passive. Elias looked at her. What are you suggesting? That humans stop pretending to be invisible, Saris said. A bitter laugh escaped him. We don't have fleets, we don't have allies. You have something rarer, she replied. You have unpredictability. Elias thought of Earth's history, of wars fought with scraps and hope, of survival against impossible odds. What happens when your people find out you helped us? He asked. Saris's expression darkened. They already suspect. Then why risk it? She met his gaze. Because I have tasted your kind's fear and found something else beneath it. What? Resolve, she said. It is intoxicating. The station lights brightened slightly as power stabilized. Outside, the dead star system remained silent, but Elias no longer felt alone in it. He straightened his shoulders. If this is going to work, he said, we need to prepare. This station can do more than listen, Saris nodded. So can you. Elias looked once more at the darkness beyond the window. Somewhere out there, decisions were being made about humanity's future. For the first time in a long while, he believed those decisions could be challenged. Elias worked through the night, the station's hum no longer comforting, but alive with potential. The link Saris had shared left him exhausted but aware of every system in Helios 9. He could feel the energy flows in the walls, the subtle vibrations of the ancient machinery, and the quiet heartbeat of the station itself. It was as if he had suddenly become part of a living organism. Saris remained near the observation window, her red eyes scanning the black void outside. Elias stole glances at her. She was calm, almost serene, yet he could sense the tension in her body. Centuries of experience had taught her patience, but Elias could feel the faint pulse of anticipation in her presence. The Nocturne were predators, and predators always calculated outcomes. Humans, she said softly, breaking the silence, adapt faster than expected. Elias focused on a panel in front of him, rerouting energy to a sensor array that had been dormant for decades. We don't have a choice, he said. If we stay passive, we die quietly, but if we act, maybe we survive. Saris tilted her head slightly. Acting is not without risk. The Conclave does not forgive disobedience lightly. I don't care about your conclave, Elias said. His words felt sharper than intended. I care about surviving, about humanity surviving. Her gaze softened, a faint acknowledgement passing between them. She said nothing, but Elias felt a subtle shift in the atmosphere. It was as if the station itself had accepted the decision. He turned back to the control console. The first step was understanding the probe's capabilities. If the coalition ships were coming, they would not arrive quietly. They would sweep the system with sensors designed to detect life, to measure energy signatures, to leave nothing unexamined. Elias began analyzing old sensor logs, looking for weaknesses, patterns, anything he could exploit. "Do you understand what they expect?" Saris asked, her voice calm, almost hypnotic. "I think so," Elias replied. "They think we're weak, slow, predictable. That we will hide and fail. Humans rarely are," Saris said. "Even when cornered, you surprise." He paused, considering her words. Humans had always survived against odds that should have been impossible. Planets destroyed by natural disasters, empires collapsing around them, predators stronger than themselves. Each time they adapted, learned, and overcame. That unpredictability was their greatest strength. He pulled up an old map of the station and the surrounding debris field. The broken planets and frozen fragments offered concealment, but also danger. Moving through the field would be like threading a needle in darkness. But that was precisely the point. A coalition fleet would rely on predictable paths and standard scans. Humans did not follow predictable paths. "Saris," he said, "I need you to show me more." "More of what?" she asked. "More ways to make the station alive, to make it fight back without weapons." She considered him, the red glow of her eyes reflecting the faint light. Then she moved closer to the central console, placing her hands lightly on the surface. Elias felt the subtle hum of energy shift again, the station responding to her touch. It was a language beyond words, a rhythm of systems and power flows. "You feel it?" she asked. "Yes," he said, awe in his voice. "It's like the station is listening." "Not listening," she corrected. "Participating, it remembers, it anticipates. It is capable of more than humans often imagine." Elias nodded slowly. "Then let's teach it." The hours passed in quiet concentration. Elias rerouted power through old sensor grids, activated redundant circuits, and connected emergency systems in ways the station's original designers had never intended. Saris guided him, not by giving commands but by revealing possibilities, paths he would never have considered alone. Together, they turned Helios 9 from a passive outpost into a living network of traps, misdirections, and false signals. By the time the first light of the system's distant sun touched the observation window, Elias felt a small thrill of hope. The station could fight, not with weapons but with ingenuity, deception, and human determination. Then the warning lights flashed. Elias' stomach tightened. "They're here." Saris moved to the window. Through the debris, a fleet of sleek ships appeared, black and silent against the starless void. They moved with precision, scanning every fragment of the field, every shadow, every trace of life. Elias could feel the tension in their sensors, the cold efficiency of a force that had destroyed countless worlds with ease. He swallowed hard. "We have to act now." "Patience," Saris whispered. "Let them approach. They expect fear. They will not anticipate creativity." Elias nodded. They waited as the fleet drew closer, each second stretching impossibly long. Then, with a sudden spark of inspiration, he activated the first layer of their defense. The station hummed, energy flowing through circuits that had been dormant for decades. The lights flickered, shadows danced along the walls, and the sensors projected false heat signatures, masking human presence. The fleet paused, their instruments detecting anomalies they could not explain. Confusion rippled through the ranks. Saris watched, eyes glinting. "They believe the station is empty." "Not for long," Elias said. He moved to another console, rerouting communications. Instead of transmitting human signals, he sent out coded messages designed to mimic signals from multiple species. The fleet's scanners picked up the noise and the ships adjusted, unsure which signals were real. The more they scanned, the more uncertain they became. "This is working," he muttered. "They're second-guessing themselves." "Good," Sarah said. "Now anticipate their next move." Elias leaned back, fingers flying over the controls. He had never felt so alive. Every calculation mattered. Every small decision could mean the difference between survival and destruction. He thought of Earth, of colonies scattered across space, of humans who refused to die quietly. He felt a surge of pride and determination. The fleet responded, sending out drones to investigate the false signals. Elias activated the next layer of defenses. Magnetic fields shifted, energy pulses misdirected, and the debris field itself seemed to move, guided by subtle station manipulations. The drones faltered, their sensors confused, their paths unpredictable. Saris observed silently, her presence a steadying force. "Humans are difficult to eliminate," she said softly. Elias grinned. "You've noticed." Hours passed as they maneuvered the station like a chessboard, every move calculated to maximize confusion and minimize risk. The fleet adjusted, then readjusted, and each time, Elias and Saris found a new way to stay one step ahead. The Nocturne's guidance allowed him to see possibilities beyond human intuition, while his creativity kept the station unpredictable. Finally, the fleet began to retreat, unable to locate any trace of human life within the station. Elias exhaled, exhausted but exhilarated. The first wave had been repelled without firing a single weapon. Saris turned to him, her expression unreadable. "You have potential," she said, "greater than I anticipated." Elias laughed, a sound of disbelief and triumph. "We did it." "Yes," she said, "but this is only the beginning. The coalition will return, and next time they will come with knowledge of our methods." He nodded, the weight of the future settling on his shoulders. "Then we learn faster, we adapt faster, we survive faster." Sarah studied him for a long moment. "Perhaps that is why I am here," she said, "to ensure the galaxy does not underestimate humanity." Elias felt a thrill run through him. The station hummed beneath them, alive, responsive, ready. It was no longer a passive outpost. It was a partner, a shield, and a weapon in its own subtle way. Outside, the black void remained unchanged, silent, and endless. But within the walls of Helios 9, humanity had taken its first step toward proving that even the forgotten, the underestimated, the abandoned could stand and fight in a galaxy that had long forgotten them. And Elias knew that the battle ahead would be unlike anything the galaxy expected. The black of space stretched endlessly beyond the station's windows, silent except for the hum of Helios 9. Elias Cade felt the tension coil inside him like a living thing. They had survived the first probe, outsmarted the initial sweep, but the galaxy would not wait long. The coalition never did. Saris remained close to the observation window, her red eyes reflecting the faint glimmer of distant debris. She was calm, almost serene, yet Elias sensed the storm beneath her stillness. The Nocturne were not merely predators. They were centuries-old strategists, creatures who had survived countless wars and betrayals. To Elias, her presence was both frightening and reassuring. "Elias," she said softly, "they will not come alone next time." "I know," he replied, his voice tight, "and we have to be ready." He returned to the control console, running simulations on the fleet's behavior. He watched as data streams displayed predicted movements of the incoming ships. The coalition's patterns were rigid, designed for efficiency but predictable. That was their weakness. Humans thrived in chaos, in the unplanned, in the gap between expectation and reality. "We can use that," Elias said aloud. "We can force them into our patterns, not theirs." Saris tilted her head. "Explain." He pointed to the debris field on the display. "The fleet will approach expecting empty space. We can manipulate energy outputs, magnetic fields, and false signals to create the illusion of a larger force. We make them think Helios 9 is defended by allies they cannot see. Her eyes glinted. Risky. Everything is risky when humans are involved, he said with a grim smile. Over the next hours, they worked tirelessly. Elia's rerouted power, activating dormant sensor arrays and linking them with Ceres's subtle influence over the station. The facility responded to them, almost as if it had been waiting for this moment for centuries. Together, they crafted a web of illusions, heat signatures where none existed, false energy readings, and shifting magnetic fields that made the station's position appear to jump among the debris. You manipulate the station with your mind, Elia said, watching Ceres guide energy flows without touching a single console. How do you even learn to do that? I do not learn, she replied. I remember, the station speaks. I listen. Elias had never understood the depths of her species' perception until that moment. She was not simply observing, she was conversing with Helios 9 in a language older than humans, and the station listened. It responded. It obeyed. Hours later, a signal flare appeared on the outer sensors. The fleet had arrived, larger this time, moving with precision and intent. Elia's pulse quickened. This was the moment they had prepared for, but preparation did not remove fear. They are moving into the debris field, Sarah said, her voice calm, almost too calm. They will not see what you want them to see yet. Patience. Elias gritted his teeth and focused. Using the modified sensors and rerouted energy systems, he created phantom signals, ghost ships, false reactors, and life readings scattered throughout the field. The Coalition's fleet slowed, recalculating, unsure which signatures were real. Drones were dispatched to investigate, only to vanish into the shadows of space between fragments. Good, Ceres murmured. Confusion is the first step. Minutes felt like hours. Elias watched as the fleet's drones collided with magnetic disturbances he had created, their sensors overwhelmed by false data. The Coalition commanders aboard the ships were likely frustrated, unaccustomed to resistance they could not measure. They think the station is stronger than it is, Elias said, a hint of pride in his voice. They're scared. Scared does not make them weak, Sarah said. They will adapt. And adapt they did. The fleet adjusted its formation, sending more drones, sweeping in tighter patterns, analyzing energy fluctuations. Elias and Ceres responded in real time, adjusting magnetic pulses and rerouting power to create shifting shadows, phantom signatures, and deceptive heat patterns. Elias realized then that this was not simply a battle of firepower. It was a battle of perception. The Coalition relied on certainty. Humans relied on improvisation. The station became a stage, and the humans and the Nocturne, the performers manipulating every movement, every expectation. Hours passed, the darkness of space broken only by the brief glimmers of distant stars and the pale light of the dead sun. Elias felt exhaustion creeping in, but he could not stop. Every second mattered. Every decision was a matter of survival. Then, a direct attack came. A small assault craft, faster and more heavily armed than the drones, moved toward the station with deadly intent. Elias' heart skipped. This was no simulation, this was the first strike aimed at them directly. Ceres's eyes narrowed. "Do not fear it," she said. "Fear clouds judgment. Observe, react, survive." Elias activated a series of energy shields rerouted through the station's ancient arrays. The assault craft collided with what appeared to be open space, only to be deflected by invisible force fields. Its weapons discharged, but the energy dissipated harmlessly against misdirected magnetic pulses. "Your ingenuity is impressive," Sarah said softly, almost to herself. Elias ignored her comment, focusing on the next threat. More craft were approaching, faster now, analyzing, attempting to locate human life within Helios 9. He could feel the station responding to him, sensors realigning, power rerouting, structural components subtly shifting to create new angles and reflections. The debris field became their ally. The fleet moved cautiously, uncertain where real threats lay. Elias guided the station, predicting their moves, anticipating their responses. Every misstep they made, every hesitation was amplified by his manipulations. "Humans fight differently," Sarah said quietly, almost in admiration. "Not with power alone, but with wit, with patience, with unpredictability." Elias' lips curled into a small smile. "We adapt because we have to. That's what makes us dangerous." A larger ship moved forward, commanding the fleet, trying to cut through the illusions. Elias felt his pulse quicken. This was the moment that would decide everything. "Saris," he said, "we can't just keep hiding. We have to make them believe Helios 9 is stronger than it is." She nodded. "Then you must escalate, push the station. Use it as a weapon without becoming one yourself." Elias activated the station's energy arrays at full capacity, directing misaligned power through the debris. A controlled series of magnetic pulses sent fragments spinning unpredictably, colliding in patterns designed to simulate automated defenses. Lights flashed across the station as energy discharged harmlessly into empty space, yet each pulse was precise, calculated to create the illusion of overwhelming force. The fleet faltered. They had expected a quiet, abandoned station. Instead, they encountered a labyrinth of shifting energy, deceptive signals, and calculated chaos. Drones were destroyed or disabled by the environment itself, leaving the fleet scrambling. Elias leaned back, exhausted but exhilarated. "It's working," he said. Saris watched, eyes glowing faintly. "Yes, but do not underestimate them. They will continue to probe. They are persistent." "They always are," Elias said, "but so are humans." As the fleet began to retreat, Elias felt a surge of triumph. They had survived this encounter. They had defended Helios 9 without firing a single weapon, relying instead on ingenuity, perception, and unpredictability. Saris moved beside him. "You have proven something important," she said. "That even when cornered, when abandoned, humans do not simply surrender. You adapt. You survive. You turn weakness into strength." Elias nodded, exhaustion heavy in his limbs. "That's what we do. That's who we are." Outside the station, the fleet disappeared into the darkness, leaving Helios 9 once again alone in the dead system. But this time, Elias felt a difference. He felt the station alive beneath him, responsive and aware, and he felt the presence of Saris, not as a threat but as an ally. The galaxy would not wait quietly. The coalition would return better prepared, more determined. But Elias and Helios 9 were ready. They had learned to fight differently, to think differently, to survive when all odds seemed against them. Saris placed a hand on the console, her fingers brushing the surface lightly. "You have potential beyond what I expected," she said. Elias looked at her, weary but determined. "Then we keep going. We adapt faster, think smarter, survive stronger. That's the human way." The station hummed in agreement, alive and ready. Outside, the darkness of space stretched endlessly, but within Helios 9, humanity had carved a small, defiant presence. They had turned the forgotten outpost into a stronghold of ingenuity and resilience, a place where the underestimated could stand tall against the galaxy's expectations. And Elias knew, as he looked at Saris and the humming station, that this was only the beginning. The coalition would return, the galaxy would challenge them again, but humanity would not break. They would not surrender. They would survive, and in surviving, they would prove something the galaxy had long forgotten, that humans, even when abandoned, were capable of extraordinary defiance and ingenuity. The battle was over for now, but the war for recognition, for survival, had only just begun. Helios 9, once abandoned, was no longer a silent outpost. It was alive, it was cunning, and it was human. And with Saris by his side, Elias knew that humanity's story was far from over. The darkness outside the station stretched infinitely, but inside Helios 9, the air was charged with purpose. Elia's Cade moved along the corridor, checking consoles and rerouting power for the 100th time, though nothing seemed redundant. Every system hummed with life, every sensor pulse was a heartbeat. The station was no longer a relic of forgotten civilizations. It was a partner, alive with human ingenuity and Saris's subtle influence. Saris followed closely, her presence both comforting and disquieting. Elias had grown accustomed to the alien's quiet observation, her red eyes glowing faintly as she studied the station and him alike. She had helped him understand the rhythm of Helios 9, how to manipulate energy, sensor readings, and magnetic fields to confuse and delay an enemy. But the fleet would return, larger and smarter this time, and Elias knew there would be no room for mistakes. "They will come back," he said, voice low though firm. "And this time they'll be prepared." Saris nodded. "Yes. But you are no longer the same human they expected to find. You have changed. The station has changed. And together you are unpredictable." He paused at a console, tapping commands that adjusted energy flows, rerouted magnetic fields, and activated decoy sensors across the station's hull. "Unpredictable can work in our favor," he said. "Humans survive when no one else thinks we can." "That is what makes you dangerous," Saris replied, her voice almost reverent. "Your species refuses to break, even when abandoned, even when cornered." Elias swallowed, thinking of the countless colonies scattered across space, left to fend for themselves while the galaxy moved on without notice. Humans had endured isolation, threats, and predators far stronger than themselves. Each time they adapted. Each time they survived. That unpredictability, that ability to improvise under pressure, was the reason he was still alive. Outside, sensors picked up movement, small ships approaching cautiously, drones scanning the debris field trying to locate Helios 9. Elias' pulse quickened, but he did not panic. Instead, he focused, letting the station guide him, the patterns of energy and magnetic flow revealing possibilities he could exploit. "Focus on their assumptions," Saris whispered. "They rely on predictability. Make them doubt everything they see." Elias nodded, activating a network of false signals and decoy energy signatures throughout the debris field. The fleet slowed, unsure which readings were real. The drones moved erratically, reacting to magnetic pulses that deflected their trajectories and to phantom heat sources that shifted with precision. "They think the station is heavily defended," Elias said. "We've turned absence into illusion." Saris's lips curved faintly. "Not just illusion. They are learning that humans are not easily underestimated." Hours passed as they manipulated the environment, drawing the fleet deeper into confusion. The coalition commanders aboard their ships expected simple calculations, rigid patterns, and predictable responses. Helios 9 provided none. Every adjustment Elias made, guided by Saris, created layers of misdirection and uncertainty. Drones collided with debris or each other, ships hesitated, and the fleet's cohesion began to falter. Then came the first strike. A larger assault vessel emerged from the shadows, moving quickly toward Helios 9. Elias felt his heart tighten, but Saris remained calm, almost serene. "Do not fear it," she said. "Fear clouds judgment. Observe, react, survive." Elias directed energy fields from the station to create magnetic turbulence in the path of the vessel. Its engines shuddered as the debris shifted, and for a moment it seemed frozen in space. The ship discharged weapons, but the energy was absorbed harmlessly into carefully calculated magnetic fields that redirected blasts away from critical systems. "They are stronger than the drones," Elias said, leaning over the console. "But so are we." Saris placed her hand lightly on the station's surface, guiding subtle energy flows. Elias could feel the pulse of the station responding to both of them, adapting faster than the fleet anticipated. The assault ship regrouped, sending more vessels into the field. Elias' fingers moved rapidly across the console, adjusting magnetic and energy patterns in real time. Each ship that entered the field faced a maze of misdirection, unable to distinguish phantom signals from reality. Sarah spoke softly, almost to herself. Your creativity, your will, it is fascinating. Even the conclave does not often encounter such persistence. Elias focused on the next move. He activated auxiliary sensor arrays, projecting multiple false signatures that suggested Helios 9 had a fleet of hidden allies waiting in ambush. The fleet hesitated, scanning, recalculating, unsure whether to advance or retreat. Every hesitation was a victory. "Patience," he whispered. "They will make mistakes." And they did. One of the assault vessels miscalculated a course correction and collided with a fragment of debris, its shields overwhelmed by unexpected energy feedback. Another vessel's sensors overloaded, mistaking phantom heat for real threats. Elias guided the station, amplifying the confusion without a single weapon fired. Hours passed. The fleet attempted to reorganize, but their formations faltered under the weight of unpredictable data. Elias felt a surge of pride. They were not just surviving, they were demonstrating a fundamental truth. Humans could adapt when others assumed they would fail. Finally, the fleet began to retreat, their energy signatures fading into the black of space. Elias exhaled, exhaustion weighing heavily on him. He had been awake for cycles, guiding the station, improvising defenses and anticipating the enemy's moves. But the thrill of success surged through him, replacing fatigue with adrenaline. Saris moved to his side. "You have proven what I suspected," she said. "Even when abandoned, humans will find a way to endure, to survive, to turn weakness into strength." Elias wiped sweat from his brow and smiled. "That's what we do, that's who we are." The station hummed beneath them, alive and responsive, a partner in the defense of humanity. Outside, the void remained silent, but inside, Helios 9 had become a symbol of resilience and ingenuity. Sarah studied Elias, her expression unreadable but thoughtful. "The galaxy will remember this encounter," she said. "Perhaps not immediately, but it will. Humans are no longer merely observers. You have demonstrated capability, unpredictability, and resilience." He nodded. "We have a long way to go, but this is a start." Saris tilted her head. "And you will continue to adapt. That is the most human trait of all. You learn, you survive, you overcome. Even the conclave will take notice eventually." Elias glanced at the observation window, where distant stars glimmered faintly. For centuries, humans had been overlooked, underestimated, and abandoned. But Helios 9, with Saris and his ingenuity, had turned that neglect into advantage. The station was no longer a forgotten outpost. It was a stronghold of human resilience, ready to face challenges the galaxy believed they could not endure. "They will come back," Elias said, voice steady. "And next time we will be ready." Saris's red eyes glowed faintly. "Yes. But remember, survival is not enough. Humanity's strength lies in your ability to inspire, to adapt, and to prove the galaxy wrong." Elias nodded, understanding the weight of her words. It was not just about surviving the next attack. It was about showing that humans, even when isolated and underestimated, could endure, innovate, and triumph. He moved through the corridors, checking systems one last time before activating a long-range signal. Not a call for help, but a message. A subtle beacon, encoded to announce that Helios 9 was operational, defended, and far from passive. It was a warning to the Coalition and a declaration to the galaxy. Humans were not to be ignored. Saris watched the transmission, silent, as Elias returned to the observation window. "You have done more than survive," she said quietly. "You have asserted presence." Elias' gaze swept across the debris field, the void, and the distant stars. "Presence is only the beginning," he replied. "We have to keep moving, keep adapting, keep surviving. That's what humans do." The station hummed in agreement, every system alive, every circuit responsive, every sensor engaged. It was a living testament to human ingenuity and persistence. Outside, the black expanse of space stretched endlessly, but for the first time in centuries, Helios 9 was not alone. Humans, abandoned and underestimated, had carved a mark in the galaxy, proving that survival was not a matter of strength alone, but of creativity, patience, and unyielding resolve. Elias and Sarah stood side by side, watching the void. The galaxy would test them again. The coalition would return with new strategies, new ships, new threats. But humans had learned something essential. They could endure the impossible, adapt faster than anyone expected, and survive where others assumed they would fall. Saris placed her hand lightly on Elia's shoulder. "The Conclave may not forgive my involvement," she said softly, "but I do not regret it. You have reminded me of something I thought long forgotten." "What is that?" Elias asked. "That hope, even in the smallest and most unlikely of species, is powerful," she said, "and humans possess it in abundance." Elias smiled, a mixture of exhaustion and triumph. "Then let's make sure they remember it." For the first time in his long watch, he felt truly proud, not just for himself, but for all of humanity. They were no longer merely survivors at the edge of the galaxy. They were innovators, strategists, and defiers of expectation. They had turned the forgotten station into a beacon of ingenuity and resilience. And as the distant stars glimmered faintly, Elias knew that this was not the end of the story. Helios 9, humans, and the unexpected alliance with Saris had set in motion a chain of events that the galaxy would not soon forget. The battle had been won, the fleet repelled, but the war for recognition, for survival, and for humanity's rightful place in the galaxy had only just begun. Elias took a deep breath, feeling the pulse of the station beneath his feet, and whispered almost to himself, "We are not alone. We are never alone, and we will survive." Saris's eyes glowed brighter for a moment. "Indeed," she said, "the galaxy will learn this lesson well. Humanity is not to be dismissed." And with that, Helios 9, the station that had once been forgotten, stood tall in the void, a symbol of endurance, creativity, and the unyielding spirit of humankind. The galaxy had been warned. The humans had risen. And the future was theirs to shape.